Welcome back to the Love Breakthrough Virtual Retreat All-Star Edition. And I'm always excited to share with you a beautiful friend of mine and an incredible healer, mentor, and coach, the lovely Erin, who is, I can say, never ever stingy with her advice, her wisdom, and her beautiful energy to everyone she knows and even everyone she hasn't met before. Today, we're going to have a pretty cool conversation about non-traditional, non-conventional ways of having a relationship, and through meandering through a whole heap of other really interesting stuff that you're not going to want to miss out on. Welcome, Erin.
Thank you, Peter. It's awesome to be here again.
We were just chatting before we hit record, and I said, hold that thought. Should we just dive straight in?
Yes,
Yeah.
to single life, because what is a relationship if we don't understand single life? Or, it's a position that many of us are in without choice. I'm pretty sure that everyone that's listening to this would rather choose to have a very fulfilling, happy, healthy, satisfying relationship. And sometimes that's not available for us. And it can feel quite powerless, actually. There's so many things in my life that I've been able to create, achieve, manifest, overcome, whatever. But in terms of like bringing that person into my life, I can't make that happen. And that's a very frustrating place to be as a powerful, motivated, ambitious woman to be sitting in this single space for longer than I desire. So it's interesting that someone's just come into my world quite recently. And this is what we were talking about before hitting record, was the little sequence of events that took place just before he came into my life. And I think a lot of it is about the preparation that we can do about us feeling whole and complete inside of ourselves, making ourselves happy in our life, being very clear on what our desires are. But what I've learned from my past relationships is that my energy particularly is very penetrating. And in human design, I have the cross of penetration, which is really quite funny as a sexuality coach. But you know my nature, you're my friend. There's something very direct and very sharp that can be really pointed, that energy, the cross of penetration, is about creating change and moving forward. And so when things are stagnant, when I see blocks, I can just go straight to the core of that, and it can create conflict. And you and I have been in that position in our friendship too. So what I realized in my past relationships is that I had these giant expectations, like giant. But I'm someone that spent 10 years working on relationships in my life. Like I have had the privilege that this is my work, and all of my personal development feeds into my work, and nothing makes me more passionate than relating and sex. And so this is my mastery. And now I'm expecting a man to show up in my life and relate at the level I do. Unless they've done what we've done for 10 freaking years, they're not going to. They're just not going to. And so it's been an opportunity to look at my expectations and be like, wow, you crush people under the weight of those expectations. Rather than being able to say, who is this person? And if they haven't been in our world, in this like field of personal development, then they're not going to have the language that we have. They're not going to have the frameworks that we have. And one of the questions I asked him when I was getting to know him was, what are your core values? And he went, ooh, I don't think I've ever been asked that question. Give me a minute. Let me think about that. And I was like, damn, that's so sexy. I'm like, you don't know, but you're excited by the question. And I kind of feel like when we all stepped into this world for the first time, when someone opened the door, we were like, ooh, I want to learn more. Give me the books, give me the readings. Let me listen to the podcast. Like we were eager to learn. We just didn't know yet. So as long as I'm going to goosebumps, as long as someone has that quality of like, oh, I'm eager to learn these things, then that's enough for me. I've been able to remove my expectations of like, well, a man needs to be like this. You need to take the lead. You need like giant freaking expectations that my previous partners have told me is really, really hard to live up to what I expect. So it's been so nice to take that back. But the key thing that I'm learning, and I'm really, really proud of myself, is that men emotionally take longer to open than we do. Just like women sexually take longer to open than men do. So a lot of women would say, we want men to slow down. We want them to take their time and not just rush into penetration. And men actually need that from us emotionally. Men need us to slow down and take our time and not rush into their heart and be banging on the door with our expectations, like, let me in, love me, make me feel safe, reassure me, meet my needs, which is basically what I was doing energetically prior to that. So this new opportunity has landed on my lap, and I am sitting in my own energy and just creating an environment that would invite a man to want to be vulnerable with me without placing expectations of it, without pushing into his heart and saying, share more with me and tell me about yourself and what are you looking for. Even though we've had some really important conversations about that stuff, it hasn't had that emotional intensity. And a big part of that is about me getting my needs met on my own. So when he first showed up, I was like, oh my God, this could be husband material. Like, it was so immediate, like the energy, my heart was racing. And Peter, you know me, I don't get nervous over anything. And I was like, oh, this man makes me nervous. It's so nice. But we got an opportunity to just talk casually, like, what are you looking for? And, you know, what's your vision? And have you had children? And all these kind of things. But the rest of it, I'm just sitting back, and I'll ask a nice question every now and then, but I'm very proud of myself for how little grasping I have in my energy, or how little need I have in my energy. Because when he came, I thought, oh my God, this is the man that's going to open my heart again. He's got the qualities to make me feel safe and to give me what I need to be in the feminine. But then as he left Bali, he hasn't. And I was like, well, Erin, you can still open your heart. You're not dependent on him. It's not about him giving it to you. What did you think you were going to get from that man? What qualities did you think were going to be expressed? What things in life did you think you were going to get to do? What feelings did you think you were going to have? And now how can I give that to myself? And that stopped the grasping. It stopped me. Oh, I'm getting goosebumps everywhere. You know, I haven't put all my eggs in his basket of like, you need to give this to me or I'm suffering without you. So it's just been a very fun, joyful, it's brought hope back into my life. And I would love to see a future with this man because I see us to have great compatibility, but I'm also okay if it's not. It will hurt if it's not. I just feel like this man's here as an expander, and he's here to put that hope in my heart again and to remind me that no matter how unloved I can feel, or how unlovable or how difficult to love I might feel, which is my biggest story, is like, I'm so deep and I'm so complex and I need so much that no man wants to give more than the bare minimum, or men go and choose someone easy or someone without complexity. And this is just like a little gift from the universe of like, oh no, Erin, there are men out there. Yes, they're a freaking unicorn, as am I. So I feel like we've both found a unicorn, but it's just that little seed back in my heart. And then I thought, oh, he loves to surf. And I was like, God, I love being by the ocean. But when was the last time I spent a lot of time down by the ocean? Like, I live here in Bali and I don't spend a lot of time at the ocean. So what have I been doing? I've been taking myself down to the ocean for sunset with my book. So it's just awesome. It's awesome, awesome, awesome. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm grateful for the role he's playing in my life inadvertently, that he has no idea that he's doing, because I'm not being emotionally overwhelming and forcing intimacy too soon. Hey, maybe he'll find out one day and maybe he won't. But either way, it's a very nice place to be in.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Erin. We're going to evolve this conversation into another topic, but before we do, it just reminded me that a lot of times when a client meets someone new, I remind them, and I find myself saying this a lot, you only get one opportunity to have a courtship with any one person. One opportunity. So you may as well really savor and really extend that courtship phase for as long as possible. Although what we innately try and do is move really quickly to a place where we feel secure, where we feel it's kind of locked in, where we feel we don't need to experience insecurities about being rejected anymore. And so we often lean in or grab or hold. And I want you to, if you can, ideally share with the girls, what are some of the things like in practice that you've been doing in order to really lean back, really allow this to evolve into whatever it's going to be, really allow that space where you're not trying to rush it too quickly.
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the best things I've been doing is sharing with my girlfriends a lot. So where my impulse used to be like, reach out to him or connect with him or text him or share inconsequential things of my day with him, because you want that kind of intimacy, that relationship level. I'm like, he doesn't need to be involved in every consequential thing that's happening in my day. So my roommate, who's very validating, she's so happy to hear me gush about him and talk about him and like tell her what I found in our combined astrological charts. Like, she's my safe outlet for letting that energy that's inside me be moved and to kind of consume that energy, so it's not projected onto him or not placed onto him to have to feed it or entertain it. So that's one of the things. I would also say that I've learned from other circumstances in life the value of delayed gratification. And because I had an addiction when I was in my late teens, and because I struggled with food issues, they're things that I've worked on many times. Is like, there's benefits, like feeling the impulse inside and feeling the desire for the immediate gratification, but then also realizing I've got the strength and I see the benefit in delaying the gratification. And so that's the same with this. It's like, oh yeah, the impulse is there, the desire is there, but what could be better if I take this slow? Like, what's the long game that I'm actually playing here? Like, I'm looking for husband and father material, and that is so worth playing the game well and not rushing it and not fucking it up and not jumping into something soon because I want my pain to be alleviated by another person. And I mentioned it to my other friends last night. I was like, we are drawing it out so slowly, chewing on it so slowly, that the tiniest little flirtation brings me so much joy. And it wouldn't be like that if you'd already jumped into bed with each other and you've gone past that stage. Like, literally now, one line of a text, just, it's so delightful and it's so full of chemistry because it's still in that very early stages of feeling into each other's energy and trying to work out where the other one is. And like, oh, it's just so good. So it's already giving me the rewards of taking it slow, of just being able to enjoy that process. But I think for these significant relationships that we want to create in our lives, then a slow game is always a good game. And so put your head in that framework now. Because, if we were trying to manifest someone and we said, all right, universe, we want this person to be here by March, and we've given ourselves 6 months, but we might be single for 3 more years, then the next 2.5 years are intense suffering because we thought it was going to be here at the 6-month mark. And if we can instead in our head say, oh, okay, 3 to 5 years, it's just a completely different frame of mind that makes us go, oh, well, I should make myself happy now, and I should book that holiday with my girlfriends that I wanted to go on, or whatever it might be. So it's almost like just the framework, the mental expectation of a long game will naturally give us more satisfaction in the moment. Another analogy that I think about all the time is when you really need to go to the toilet and you're like, oh, and I'm going to hold on a bit longer. And you get to the toilet door and you're like, ah, but it's locked. And you're like, oh my God, now I can't hold on at all. It's like just being so close to the goal and the goal not coming creates excessive suffering. So if we can always kind of put the gratification a bit further away from us and say, what if we were in this position for 3 or 5 more years? Like, I'm 41 this year. So I feel like there's a part of me that's questioning my age and questioning the desire to be a mother and being like, I don't have time, universe. I don't have time for this. Bring me a man and bring me the father of my child soon, because we're running out of time. But every time I sit in my meditation, that feeling isn't there. In my meditation, there is this feeling of like, everything is unfolding according to plan. Everything is fine. I'm like, oh, it's just my head playing games with me, creating stress, creating anxiety. Like, it's the stories that we tell ourselves that take us out of that peaceful state. And if I can let go of that and be like, a few of my friends are going into perimenopause at 47. 2 of my closest friends are 47. And I was like, okay, Erin, if that's truly perimenopause for you, you've got 6 years. I know that sounds crazy to think about having a child that late in life, but it's biologically possible. So why am I sitting here freaking out thinking time's running out? It's like, if that is a destined point of my life, which I genuinely deep in my heart feel like that is my destiny, I feel like I'm being called to that, then I can sit back, I can trust, I can relax, I can enjoy the process rather than thinking I have to rush, I have to sort this out. And, you know, I think that's what leads a lot of people to settling. It's like, well, I really want that thing and this guy's good enough. This opportunity is not really what I want, but I'd rather something than nothing. And that leads us to making not the highest decisions for ourselves. So it's just for me, it's an easy, having overcome addiction, it is quite easy for me to just flip the switch and say, no, that's not for me. This is for me. I don't want to behave that way anymore. That's causing me pain. Boom. It's just almost black and white inside of me. So if I notice that I'm grasping and suffering and attaching, then I have to find what is the thought that will bring me the peace that I'm looking for. What is the thought that will bring me the feeling? And then I just go cold turkey on my brain, and I do not allow myself to think those thoughts anymore. It's like, no, this thought. And then the peace floods in, the grasping relaxes, and then it's okay. And then we move on. And then I enjoy the really freaking sweet, very innocent little flirtatious text again.
That was really powerful what you just said, Erin. And I want to actually go back over and recap that, because I know, especially for all of us that have had that kind of connection that you know is something different, that you know is something special, they are the ones that are actually harder to prevent.
Oh my God, yes.
That this issue of like, well, I haven't heard from him for X period of time or X number of days, or, you know, misinterpreting a text, and just really worry, like this sort of worry, low level anxiety, even maybe high level anxiety, this, where do I stand? What's happening between us? Like that is so amplified often when it is a really unique, special connection. And I want you to just, because you gave us a beautiful technique there, just to sort of recap over, how do I manage those anxious thoughts, those sitting in that space of not being 100% certain about what this is going to be, but how do you do that?
How did you know to ask that question?
Because you've been working on it, right?
Yes. Let me tell you a little bit more about the story. So we met via text because my roommate saw him on Tinder and was like, oh my God, this is word for word what Erin told me she was looking for yesterday. So he and I were texting, and his intention was to be in Bali for a month. And that got called short because he's actually in the military and he was going back to active service. And so we met just for an afternoon before he flew to Ukraine. And it was amazing meeting. He didn't make a move on me. He didn't kiss me. He didn't touch me or anything. We just were in deep presence for 6 hours, like a very deep conversation for 6 hours. He left. I saw him off in the taxi. I got ghosted. I didn't hear from him for a week. And the number that I had for him was not going through. It just had one tick. And I was like, seriously, universe, did you just put husband material on my path to have me ghosted? Like that goes against everything that I just felt inside, the gravitational pull that I felt between us, that potential, that connection. And this guy just disappears into thin air, and I don't know his last name, and he doesn't have social medias, and I will never have a means to contact him again. Like that is the cruelest suffering, the most intense of that exact stress that you were talking about. I couldn't believe it. And I really had to sit in it. And I had a lot of work to do, And also, as a person that lives by my intuition, who's very comfortable living intuitively and reading between the lines, I've got all of this information that tells me this is significant, but I have these human circumstances that are like, he didn't even kiss you, Erin. He didn't even kiss you goodbye. He didn't, like, he's left, if he's changed his number, he's not told you about it. Like, ugh. So it was hell. That week was hell. Honestly, I called upon a lot of friends. I did a lot of healing. I actually did an internal process where I met with his higher self, and I got to express all my feelings and, you know, express my pain and question everything. And then I actually sat in his position and expressed back to Erin. So I got to feel intuitively where he was at and what was going on for him. And it was a week of hell. And I finally just like got to the place where I kind of felt like, okay, if that's what it was, he was just a spark to make me feel something, to open me, to give me hope again. And I have to just move on. And then he texted me. I was like, I had to reach that place of non-grasping. And then he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to ghost you. Things were really bad. So he actually returned to war, and I've heard further details now, and I was like, it's kind of the most legitimate excuse I've ever heard for ghosting. You're at war. It's okay. So we're back in contact again now, and things are better. But yeah, that was some of the most extreme. Actually, that's not true. I have felt things that extreme before, but it's when I was much less healed, and it was a lot of my trauma going off and my attachment stuff going off. And the guy wasn't the best suited guy for me. It just was all of those feelings and that chemistry and like all that trauma bonding stuff. That's just like, you're the one. And so now that I've done so much more work on myself, I was really judging myself for having those feelings come up. It's like, Erin, you should know better than this. Erin, you should be more secure than this. Erin, you shouldn't have this level of anxiety anymore. And that wasn't helpful at all, to be judging myself like that. And like I said, a very validating roommate helped a lot, because she was like, it makes sense why you feel like this, Erin. She's like, this looks like something very significant. Look at all the signs and the synchronicities around it. She's like, it can't not be something. But she helped me find that little bit of rationality amongst the intense emotions. But I spent a few days in bed crying. Like it stirred something so deep inside me to meet someone like that again, where I felt seen and where I felt like, oh my God, this guy's my equal. And another analogy I've been using quite a bit lately is being such a powerful person and such an intelligent person. If you had a black belt in karate, but there were no other black belts to fight with, and you're only fighting with people at yellow or white level, then you're always holding something back. You can still spar and you can have fun, but it's only when you meet someone that's truly your equal that you can let it all out and you really get to express the fullness of who you are. And so I feel like I'm a black belt emotionally, sexually, intellectually. And I live in this place in Bali where people are just a bit floaty and, like we don't have academics around. We don't really get into very deep, intellectually stimulating conversations. It's an emotive place and I love that. But I've just had this feeling of like, I'm not fully met. I don't get to express the fullness of myself and I'm just waiting for someone. I'm waiting for the right person. And so he came along and I was like, holy shit, we can fight. And that turns me on a lot. I'm like, this guy, I can like push their edges, especially intellectually. It's almost, another friend of mine said, yeah, you're like a Ferrari living in Bali, Erin. You need the Autobahn in Germany. It's like, yeah, why do people drive Ferraris and Lamborghinis around Bali when we can only go 30 kilometers an hour? It's like, it's a waste of such a vehicle, of such an amazing vehicle. And so I met him and I was like, oh, it was like, we are going to be able to gallop through the fields. Like that horse that's been sitting in a barn is about to like bolt and have someone right beside me. And like, oh, it's just something I haven't felt in a long time. And I'm sure that he felt that intensity too. I'm sure he goes around a lot not feeling fully met intellectually. Or the other very common thing we share, which is a great segue into what our topic is today, is that we both need a lot of freedom and autonomy. And that's not necessarily compatible in a lot of relationships, because a lot of people want to lock you down, stay at home, comply with what I desire rather than letting you be free. And so I think both of us have a bit of a feeling like maybe relationships aren't for us. Maybe that kind of traditional model is not going to work and it's kind of lonely out here. And then, we bump into each other and we're like, oh, you're like that and you're like that and you're like that and you're like that. And like there's all these similarities. Like that's scary. That's a new level of vulnerability that's very intimidating for a lot of people. So I can't remember what your original question was, but I love talking about him and I love talking about this. So
you talked about the feeling, bringing in the feeling good thoughts and replacing them and pushing out the other thoughts.
Yeah. So that's a really simple question I ask myself. What is the thought that brings the feeling? That's it. So I have to get clear on what feeling I want to feel. And so in those great times of uncertainty, and I said it exactly like that to my roommate, I want to feel peace and I want to feel certainty. That's what I want to feel again. So what are the thoughts that I need to think that bring me peace and certainty? And I don't care if it's a delusion. I don't care if it's me saying there is something here with this man and he's coming back into my life. If that brings me peace and relief from the suffering in the moment, then it's the right thought in the moment. I don't put the huge gravity on it that it needs to be the truth and it needs to be the truth for the next 5 years. It's about alleviating the immediate suffering of that great uncertainty. And I think any of us that have ever had anxious attachment, no matter how secure we get, will always suffer in great uncertainty. And there is a level of suffering in uncertainty that's very natural and healthy. And I saw that in myself too. It's like, oh, Erin, you're expecting yourself to be perfect again. You're placing giant expectations on yourself that you're never going to have a problem, that you're so secure that you're fine with everything. Absolutely fucking not. Like, humans are not designed to live in mass uncertainty and chill out by the pool and be like, yeah, cool, the world's collapsing around us, but like, we're fine. No, uncertainty is like, it leads to a sense of unsafety for a reason. So it was nice to just give myself permission to say, yeah, okay, this extreme sense of uncertainty isn't pleasant to be in, but it's also okay. It's here. It's okay. This is part of the process. What can I do to make it better for myself? But what can I do to get through at the same time? Just be gracious, just be kind. Know that these are our childhoods developed the women that we are today. And no matter how much we can work on ourselves to kind of compensate for our childhoods, for our early relational experiences, for our loves that broke our heart, that is still who we are on some level. And we cannot completely erase it. And I think my high levels of ambition, expect that of myself, is to just completely erase everything I've been through and just arrive at some place where I'm perfect, where I'm just relating perfectly. But the little girl inside of us is the one that's freaking out with the uncertainty. It's the one of us that never had certainty from our parental figures. And it's the one of us that got our heart broken in really tragic relationship settings or abusive relationship settings. So if we're putting the pressure on ourselves, we're putting the pressure on that wounded part of us as well. So there was a lot of compassion for myself of being like, yeah, okay, you feel like a 41-year-old woman in bed crying by herself over a dude you went on one date with. Like, come on, Erin, like that judgmental voice of like, are we still in this place at 41 crying over some boy that you're not going to see again? It just was like high school flashbacks of some cute guy at school that didn't even know that I existed. It was like, oh, that was so heavy. And it was like, no, Erin, we're not that girl anymore. We're wise. We're intuitive. We're smart. This is something. It's okay to feel so much right now. This is going to be a phase. We're going to get ourselves through it. Things are going to get clearer. How can you be grateful? How is this here to serve me? Like, I used all of those tools that I have, but realistically, it was a week of suffering. A week of immense suffering.
And I think just that courageous act of opening our heart to love and being present with that desire and being willing to allow ourselves to imagine what a future can look like filled with love is something that so many of us have repressed, like really, really repressed. And sometimes like this person comes along and kind of cracks it open. And then sometimes we become really open, and sometimes we can recoil at the slightest hint of that, oh, but I don't know where this is going, or I don't know where I stand. So I'm just really pleased that you normalized this feeling for us of what it's of, it is going to feel a little bit uncertain. We're going to feel a little bit nervous. It's going to be a little bit scary, but in an exciting way as well.
Yes, exactly. And again, that comes back to the expectations of relieving ourselves of the expectations that it's going to be perfect from the get-go, that someone's going to be exactly what we're looking for, or as developed as we are, or be able to show up the way that we expect a man to show up. Like, it's just never going to happen that way. And if we can instead just be open and curious and be grateful every step of the way, like, okay, well, it's here. It's a good thing that it's here. It's a good thing that this man is challenging my heart. It's a good thing that my fear is coming to the surface again, because that gives me a chance to grow. But I think we just need to practice that non-attachment, without, like, the pain is here. The fear of pain is here. That's for me to work on. That's not about him. He doesn't have to solve it. He doesn't have to reassure me. He doesn't have to be the perfect man that takes the lead all the time. It's like, I'm just going to sit in my own space and work on what's coming up for me. And like that, my meditations kept saying that to me, is just be the light, be the love. He will return to you. Just be the light, be the love. Let him return to you. And I was like, that's who I am. It's just asking me to be me, open-hearted, loving, grateful, fulfilled in my life. What will be, will be. If he doesn't return to me the universe has got something better in store. It always has. It's always shown me that. Every relationship, when we do this much work on ourselves, the next relationship always succeeds the previous one. It always gets better in some way. Our vibrational match is better because we've done the work. So all relationships are just a mirror for us to keep doing the work.
Let's talk about, because I know that there's lots of ladies that are going to really appreciate the permission to step into their desires for relationships that don't follow convention or tradition. And that's something that we felt was really important to talk about in this conversation. Where do you want to start with that?
Well, it's great. It's a great segue, because this potential relationship has really made me look at that. And again, it's been shattering my expectations naturally. So for me, I've never had a conventional relationship. I was in a same-sex relationship at a very early age. I was married, in inverted commas, in Australia before it was legal to be married in a same-sex relationship. I've had open relationships, poly relationships. I've had affairs with married men and women. Like basically every kind of relating style, I've done it. But my dream is still some sort of white picket fence with the man and the child and being provided for financially and blah, blah, blah. But realistically, if I look at myself, I have a very high need for freedom and autonomy. And I also think that that's a hyper independence hangover from childhood trauma. The thought of like being locked down and not having independence really freaks me out. And what I've been given the opportunity to look at now is, how do I move into that dream that I have, which is a feeling. It's a feeling. The image that I have in my brain brings a feeling that I want to feel, which is safe and secure and loyal and supported, and like we're a fucking unbreakable team that can take on the world and like make our lives a million times better because we've got each other. How do I fit who I am into that picture, knowing that I need a lot of freedom and autonomy? And when I look back at my marriage, I'm like, oh, damn, our marriage was absolutely the best when we were both working as flight attendants, which meant that we had a lot of time independently and a couple of days together a week. And we both really valued quality times. We made those couple of days awesome. But when I stopped flying and then my partner stopped flying and we were both home 24/7, our marriage ended within a year. It just wasn't compatible anymore because we weren't getting our needs met. So now here I am wanting to have a child with a man as a bisexual woman, but wanting this kind of monogamy kind of vision of like loyalty, but knowing this other part of me is not going to be expressed. So that's why this topic has become so pertinent to me right now, is like every relationship that we build needs to be personalized to the two people that are in it. So, you know, and you and I have talked about this in great depth because you're someone that really is monogamous to the core, and I'm someone that's never been monogamous. And so how do we, if we were to fall in love, how would we make that work when one person's values don't align with another person's values? And so I think that's really the crux of all non-conventional relating styles, is the need to really know who we are and to know what our values are. And as we bring that into relationship, my values, your values, my desires, your desires, we then need to look at the crossover, like a Venn diagram. It's like how much of that is aligned and shared common ground effortlessly, and how much there doesn't correlate to each other. Because there should be some area that's not correlated. There should be some sense of individuality of the things that you're interested in, and having your own circle of friends to spend time with, you know, not to merge into total codependency. But if those things that are sitting outside of the shared ground are the absolute core of who you are, that relationship's unlikely to work. I really don't think if someone was a diehard monogamous person and someone was a diehard poly person that you could ever truly, truly be happy. There will be a sense of sacrifice and suffering the whole way. And that's not to say that those relationships shouldn't happen at all, because I think sometimes they're the ones that give us a lot of growth and we can learn about ourselves a lot. But if we come in with expectations of like, well, now that we're married, you can't be with other women, I'll be like, oh, that's not going to be sustainable. That's not going to be me being me. But if someone's threatened by me being with women, if that's a problem against their core values, then it's not right for them to let me go and be with women while they carry the suffering and while that eats away at them. So creating non-conventional relationships, I think, is the opportunity to sit down and say, what's important to you? What's your vision? How do you want to express? This is me. This is what's important to me. Is that compatible? And how can we work with that? So some of that might look like play together, openness. So sexually, for a lot of people that are not necessarily poly, they don't want to have multiple relationships. They don't want to have, I'm the wife, but he's got a girlfriend, or that's my husband and I've got a boyfriend. But they want some sense of sexual freedom to still learn and to still play. Then they might say, okay, as a pair, then we can have sex with other people. Or as a pair, we might go to a sex party or a kink party. Or as a pair, we might go out to dinner and flirt with other people at the bar or pick someone up and take them home. But it doesn't come between the couple. It's almost like you're working as one unit. The loyalty, the trust, the love is there. It's never about, oh, let me go and start this relationship and bring them in. But actually, sometimes it is. Sometimes it's like, I don't want to do all the talking. I don't want to do all the negotiating. Can you go out and find someone and I trust you and bring them home and then we have fun and then we say goodbye. You know, for some couples, because I have a lot of threesomes as a bisexual person, it's very convenient. Sometimes when I have sex with couples, they're like, we don't have sleepovers. Like we say, that's it at the end of the night and then you go home. And I say, that's not for me. Like, that's okay, that's what's right for them, that their openness does not extend to intimate time in the bedroom. That's how they reconnect as a couple after having some sexual experiences. But for me as a unicorn, that's never going to be okay with me. That makes me feel really excluded. If a couple isn't like, stay in the spare room, we'll have breakfast together in the morning, we'll still be friends and hang out, then again, it's just this idea of like, we're not really compatible. But it's not a problem. It's not me being rejected. It's not you being rejected. It's not that there's something wrong with you because you really want monogamy. I really don't believe there's any better relating style than any other. There are monogamous people who are so diehard monogamous that they think that everything else is wrong. And there are diehard poly people who just think monogamy is the most outdated construct and have so much judgment for it. And then there's like this monogamy phobia and polyphobia. It's like they're all hating on each other because everyone thinks that they're superior. Actually, none of it's superior. The only relationship that is right is the relationship that's right for you right now. That's it. Right now, monogamy might be the best freaking thing I've ever done. And I've had windows of monogamy, quite significant windows of monogamy. And when I chose like, let's close the marriage again, oh man, I was 2 feet in. I was like, yes, this is what I want. Absolutely. I'm not here because it was expected of me. I'm not wondering if the grass is greener and thinking about everything else. No, I am so monogamous right now. And this is what feels good and right to me. And I really don't know what my future holds. Until I meet that person and until I know who they are and what they want, and then we find that middle ground, there might be a time, there might be a person who comes along who stimulates such a sense of possessiveness in me I do not want to share. Which I've never felt before. I've always loved to share my partners, but certainly in this new circumstance, I was like, I feel a little glimmer of something that could be a bit jealous. Like, where did that come from? It's just the nature of it. You put, like, if we're making a cocktail, you put that ingredient with that ingredient, you make that cocktail. When you add ingredient 1 and ingredient 2 to ingredient 3, there's no going back from that. That is, every time you add ingredient 1 and ingredient 2, you're going to get cocktail. If you add a third ingredient, if you swap out one of them, if you swap out the alcohol for something else, if you change the mixer or the garnish, you get a completely different cocktail. So every time we go into a relationship with anyone, whether that's friendships, intimate relationships, family, work, we have these 2 ingredients coming together and making a unique third thing. So until I meet that person and discover what that third thing is, I don't know. I just don't know. And that person might come along and I'm like, damn, I am monogamous for the rest of my life. It's you and it's only you and I'm happy and I feel fulfilled and like I need nothing else. I'm open to the fact that that may happen. I don't know if it's likely, but I'm certainly open. And I'm open to also meeting someone who feels like that towards me. And I'm like, I cannot deny my bisexuality. I did that for 13 years in my same-sex marriage. I didn't sleep with men for 13 years. And I think on some level, destroy is a hard word, but it ate away at me after a long, long time. It ate away at my sexual expression. I internalized a lot of shame and a lot of judgment towards who I am and what I want. And it took me a lot of work to undo that. And so now that I've come out of that, I'm like, I don't want to shut myself down for anything. I don't want to put myself in a cage for anyone. I don't want to deny the truth of who I am. But is that just the pendulum swinging from one extreme to another? Is there going to be some miraculous middle place that opens up where I'm like, wow, I just feel fine and I feel content and I don't need anything else? Who knows? But I'm willing to explore and I'm willing to find out and I'm willing to craft the thing that feels right for both of us. And I think the most important thing is we need to be okay to walk away from relationships where the compatibility is not there. You know, sometimes we can love someone so deeply. We can have all the love in the world, and it doesn't mean we're compatible in relationship. And I think a lot of people stay in relationships, but like, I love him. I'm like, I know you do. And that's not enough to build a healthy relationship. It's not enough. And I see it sexually as well. Sometimes we can have the most amazing sexual chemistry. And it's not enough to stay in a healthy relationship. It's not enough to build a healthy relationship. So if we stay there out of scarcity, because, you know, you said this on my podcast once, the anxious attachment feels so strong because we tell ourselves, I'm never going to get it this good again. I'm never going to meet someone like this again. And so we stay in these things that don't fit, or where we're suffering, or where we're denying part of ourselves, or where we're always afraid that they're cheating, or where they are going out and having sex with other people, but it's really not working for us, or we're denying our bisexuality because we're trying to be monogamous. It's just suffering, and it erodes the quality of relationship. So we need to be able to say, I love you. This is not about love. I am who I am. You are who you are, but we don't have enough middle ground for this naturally to happen. I think they're the healthiest, the golden relationships is where you get to be fully yourself without trying, in all of your moods and all of your glory and all of your shadow and everything. You just get to be you and I get to be me, and it's just easy. There's just a harmony that comes from those two ingredients. It's just a really nice cocktail. That alcohol, that mixer, simple and easy. But sometimes that alcohol and that mixer is just a bit, it's a bit, but we're trying out a bit more sweetness, or we'll try and modify things to make it work. And yes, we can. I'm not judging anyone that chooses that, because I choose relationships for growth. So I do often choose relationships that are hard. But I think the relationships that have a lot of longevity and the relationships that bring a lot of ease into our lives, there's something natural about it. There's just this absolute acceptance. I am who I am, and you are who you are. I accept me, I accept you, and wow, we share so much common ground, and it's just fucking awesome.
I love the theme that really weaved through everything that you just shared there, Erin, was really know thyself. Mm-hmm. And I think the beauty of what you shared is that it also doesn't mean I have a label and a fixed definition of myself, and therefore all of my relationship experiences from then on in are going to be about this, that we can actually transcend that and know ourselves to the level of knowing that we evolve and we have a different mixer, like you said, with different people. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a beautiful level of awareness. Just one thing that I wanted to circle back on and touch on, that when you talked about non-monogamous relationships, and as a staunchly monogamous person myself, yes. I think the issue that I had was deeply believing that there were quite a number of women that were agreeing to non-monogamous relationships when it wouldn't have been their preference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because in my camp, I would say exactly the same thing. I see so many people suffering through monogamy. I see so many people denying who they are because they feel they need to be monogamous. I see a lot of people cheating, like so much freaking cheating in monogamous relationships because people are not, they're suffering through something. So I think, yes, it's so true. I think there is this trend that poly is we're so evolved and we're so conscious, and look at us, and like monogamy is this thing of the past, and that's absolute and utter bullshit. yes, it's progressive. There's no doubt about that, because we're breaking down society's expectations. But progressive doesn't mean better if it's not right for you. Progressive might be to be staunchly monogamous in a world of being poly and being loud and proud and open and an amazing example of monogamy. That's super freaking progressive. Having a monogamous relationship that doesn't fall into what we saw our parents having as monogamy, that's still a progressive kind of monogamy where there's a lot of freedom and a lot of conversation and a lot of shared roles, and not, the gender expectations of the past. And like, I'm getting goosebumps as I talk about it. There's relationships being progressive. It doesn't matter what the format of the relationship is. It's the essence of it. It's the quality of relating between two people. And this is something that I learned through being poly as well, is like, previously we got a lot of our security from the fact of like, well, we bought a house together and we share our income and we've got kids and like, we're safe. But actually you can have two very toxic, unhappy, not committed people with all those external structures. And in poly, we don't get the opportunity to build a house and share our bank and have kids with every partner that we have. So we start to shift the focus on, where does the security come from? And it comes from the quality of relating. It comes from what exists between you. Now, I'm a diehard romantic. I want to get married again. I already fantasize about what kind of wedding I want to have. Like, I love the thought of being married. But really, I feel like you can see when two people are married emotionally. It's like that emotional marriage is what I want. The quality of the marriage exists between two people, and you can spot it. You can see them out. You can see them walking through the world together, and you're like, damn, they've got it. They're married. It's not about the piece of paper. It's not about the legalities. It's not about the wedding. That's what poly's really taught me, is like, build the quality of the relating. All the external stuff will come and go and change, but like, if the quality is there, then that's what we all want, I'm sure, at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Where everyone's nodding, we're all going, yes, that's what we want.
We do. Come on, universe, bring it to us all. Grant our wishes.
Anything else to do with this idea of non-traditional relationships and negotiating these non-traditional, non-conventional relationships that you wanted to touch on?
Well, a lot of this comes down to, as you said, the self-awareness piece. We need to know ourselves. That's the vital first ingredient. And the second one is communication, being able to communicate who we are and what we want. And you and I have been in this industry for a long time, mastering these skills. Not everyone can express their deep, intimate, complex inner world in the way that you and I can, because we've got the language and we use the language and we read the books. So I would really encourage, if you're in a position where the communication is not flowing easily, or someone's getting really hurt by the things you're trying to express, but that's not what you meant, is get support, is find a therapist, a coach, someone who can facilitate those conversations, because it takes the intensity off it. We get to, a lot of this stuff touches on wounding that we have. That's why these conversations can be hard, because it's like, oh, you want to sleep with women? Am I not good enough? Like, that's absolutely not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is about me. It's not about you, but that's where most relationships go. We've all been in those relationships where it's just like straight into everyone's trauma and everyone's getting triggered. And it's just like, we're cycling through triggers and no one's getting anywhere. So if that stuff is present, that's a sure indicator of needing support to work on your own stuff, so your own stuff doesn't go off like alarm bells, but also just getting support from someone who's equipped and capable of facilitating conversations so that we can get to that place where it's naturally harmonious. When we're first kind of moving towards each other, it is a bit clunky, and you're learning about each other. And slowly enjoying the long game, we get closer and closer and closer by removing expectations, judgments, all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, if you don't feel like these conversations will come easily, there are many people who will be able to support and facilitate that.
What does getting your support look like, Erin? And tell us a bit about the beautiful discount you've got available for the ladies.
So I do relationships coaching. That sounded like a terrible sales pitch for my own work. I'm like, hey, well, I'm the solution, but I may be the right solution. If I'm not, there are, you have to feel that feeling of like, this person makes me feel safe. This person gets me. they see me. I have had some very monogamous people feel like I'm not the right relationships coach for them because I'm too non-conventional, and we probably don't share enough common ground for me really to understand that couple's unique situation. So my relationship coaching, I work with individuals, but also with couples. And so I'm happy to offer $100 off my coaching package, well, my monthly coaching fees for people that are interested in that. But I think that the quality of relationship comes from the quality of individuals. So even if you're the only one that wants to do the work, you still can do that. You can still drastically improve your relationship, even if your partner's not yet on board. So I think, again, those expectations, like, you've got to come with me to relationship coaching, we need to do this work together. If that's not really flowing, still take it the horse by the reins and go and do the work on yourself, because you're changing that cocktail. You're changing the ingredients that's going into the cocktail. It's naturally going to have these flow-on effects. And, sometimes when people come to relationship coaching with me, the result is actually a separation, and that can be a good thing. And sometimes the result is coming closer together, and that's a good thing. There's no right or wrong. It's just this opportunity to continue refining our awareness of ourselves and our skill set and our understanding of what we want. And then ultimately that leads to healthier and happier relationships. But that might mean that sometimes when people are in this, like, stuck in the mud with someone that doesn't want to grow, might be time to step out of that and move towards what you want.
How can we connect with you, Erin, and tell us about a meditation that you've also got available?
Yes, my self-worship meditation, which is just one of my favorite meditations. I still do it myself as well. I love it. And it's just an opportunity to deepen our sensuality and our sexual connection with ourselves. And I can be found on all social media platforms by my name, Erin Kyna. I am actually the only Erin Kyna that exists on the planet. So you put that into any platform and you can find me across Instagram, my podcast, YouTube, my website, my email, everything.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And for those of you that are going to be joining us in 2024 for the Love Breakthrough Bali retreat, you'll no doubt get to meet Erin in person and experience some of her beautiful energy and Kundalini work as well, which is a whole other beautiful modality that you bring to your clients. Yes. There's a massive amount of wisdom and experience. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we close out?
No, I would like to transmit this hope that I feel in my heart today. I want us all to feel this. After such a challenging window of singledom, I'm really happy to be here. And I hope that by sharing my story today, that it puts a seed of hope in others as well, that it's all working out for all of us, no matter how dark or barren things might feel at any time. I know life is always working to serve us.
Appreciate you so much. Thanks for sharing your time, and I'll see you very soon.
Yes.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye everyone. See you tomorrow.